Okay, so in this lesson we're going to dive into gear, and we're going to talk about just the essential things that you need to have on your gear that are going to give you the ability to learn to scratch and to be able to follow all the lessons in this course. So if you've already got DJ gear, this is going to be really useful to you to know whether you're on the right track. But also if you haven't actually bought anything yet and you're thinking about what system to get or what setup to get, I'm going to run through a load of different options here for you, so that will help you make the decision. So I've gone right back to the origins of scratching here with a real vinyl turntable setup. And the reason I've done this is that nothing has really changed in terms of what you need to have on your gear to be able to learn to scratch from way back then when it was the originators of Cool Herc and Grandmaster Flash first coming up with these techniques. They used to play vinyl records, so these are, you know, actual records that have got actual music on them, and would have two turntables and a mixer, and basically that was it. So let's talk about what's actually happening here. First of all, we've got a source of music, right? So we've got some actual music, and in this case this is the instrumental of Young MC's I Come Off. Right, so I'm playing that on this deck, on the right hand deck, and the output from this, the audio output from this, is going into this mixer and is coming up on this channel here. So it's got its own individual volume control. Okay, what else does this deck have? It also has the ability to change the tempo or the pitch by speeding up and slowing down the record. Let's have a listen. Okay, and what else can you do with it? Well, of course, you can grab hold of it, you can stop it, you can rewind it, you can manipulate it, so of course you can scratch with it. All right, so I've got a music source, I've got a player, I've got the ability to grab and to manipulate that sound, and I've got the ability to change the tempo of it, and I've got that twice. I've got the same over here just by replicating exactly the same deck on the other side. Okay, so on this case I've got some different sounds here. These are some scratch sounds. Word up. Yo! Fight it! This is one of the most famous scratch records of all time. This is Super Duck Breaks. And so yeah, same thing applies here. I've got a music source. I can speed it up and slow it down. I can manipulate it, I can stop it, and it has its own channel here on the mixer. So of course, the mixer is doing a really important job here, because not only does it give each one of these sources its own volume control, but it gives you the ability to be able to blend them together so they can actually be playing at the same time.
Clap to this.
So that's the beat.
Close to me. Here we
Yeah,
go.
the scratch sounds. Okay, so I'm able to make scratch sounds on this deck while this one is playing by grabbing it and manipulating it. But what else does the mixer need? It needs a crossfader. And this is because you need to be able to switch on and off the scratch sound, and you're going to learn obviously all about this in the course, but you need to be able to switch that scratch sound on and off, and you need to be able to switch it on and off quickly to make scratch sounds over the other track. Now, back in the day, mixers didn't have crossfaders, they only had the vertical fader, so this is the way you used to have to do that. So I'm going to find a scratch sound here.
Fight it.
I'll wait for the famous one.
What? Get by fist on it. Break it down like this.
Break.
I'll use that one. So if I want to actually cut that in and out, the only way I had to do it prior to having a crossfader was using the vertical fader. So but it's quite hard to get precision, because this is going from 0 to full volume and it's taking all that space to do it, all that travel, all that distance to do it. So it's quite hard to get a sharp cut. You can hear it's kind of fading in and out. So this is where the crossfader comes in, and we're going to talk about how to set up the crossfader on your gear in coming videos, but this means that you can actually cut that sound in and out really quickly and moving from side to side. Okay, much sharper. Now the crossfader was originally designed for DJs to be able to do smooth blends, mixing backwards and forwards, but the scratch DJs had better ideas and started using it for scratch sounds and for cutting those sounds in and out. So let's just recap what we've got here. We've got music, so we've got sounds. We've got two players that can play those sounds, that have the ability for us to grab hold of them and manipulate them. We can change the tempo and the speed on these players, and those go into a mixer which has individual channels for both of those sound sources and a crossfader to move between them. Right, that's how it was back then, and in terms of being able to learn to scratch, that's how it is today. Okay, so I'm going to show you some other types of setups that you may have, but as long as your gear has those elements, then you're going to be able to learn to scratch. So let's talk about the first type of setup that you may have, which would be DVS, Digital Vinyl System. Okay, so with a DVS system, you start off with the same hardware in terms of you've got two turntables and a mixer, but you need some new things in order to be able to use DVS, and this is where we move into digital vinyl system is what it's called. So the first thing you need is a laptop. Now I'm not going to get into recommendations for laptops. I'm going to talk to you about that, a little bit about that in the software setup lesson, but you need a laptop with DJ software on it that you can control. So this brings us on to the word control. So how do you do that? You have Control Vinyl. Now this is Serato. There are DVS systems for Rekordbox and also for other softwares as well, Tractor included. And so you have these timecode vinyls. So these still are a piece of vinyl that goes on the deck, but this is the sound they have. It's a code, and that code, when put through a compatible mixer, which actually this Newmark Scratch mixer is, it's compatible with Serato, and you switch it over to PC, all of a sudden you're now able to control music in your laptop, right? So it's the same system. We still have two sources of music. However, the source of music is now coming from your software. That is controlled by this control vinyl. I can grab it and move it around, and it will grab the sound and move it around. And I have the ability to mix and use the crossfader for DVS as well. So that's why DVS works for scratching just as well as any other setup. All right, so let's move further into digital now, but we're gonna just put the laptop to one side for a bit, and we're gonna look at another type of system that if you have, then you're gonna be able to learn to scratch on, which is the all-in-one system. So let's take a look at that. So here we are with one of the most fully feature-packed and futuristic DJ systems that there are. This is an all-in-one system, and this is Denon DJ's Prime 4. Now Pioneer DJ have the XDJ RR and the RX2, and they are standalone systems as well, all-in-one systems. And what do we mean by that? Well, this system is able to operate without a laptop. So the source of the music comes from USB stick. Or there's actually a drive built into here, or you can use SD cards. Basically, your music is on a data stick. So you could just turn up with your USB drive, plonk it into the system, and then basically you're gonna have your music in your library. So no need for a laptop. But we're concentrating on what you need for scratching here. So let's just go back to what we've just been talking about with the vinyl system and see whether we have those here. So certainly got two spinny things, right? Two jog wheels. So the vinyl decks, these are now been reduced to jog wheels, and these are enabled to control music. So we've got two sources here. In fact, there's four. You can actually control a third and fourth deck, but we only need two, right? We're just concentrating on what we need here. And I've got a track playing on this here, coming from my USB stick. And I can grab and manipulate it. And I can change the speed. So all good to go there, and I've got the same on this side.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And I've got some scratch sounds on here. And in the middle here, I've got the mixer section. So I've got the ability to have these two playing at the same time. Okay, and also, really important, I've got the crossfader, so I'm able to cut that sound in and out as I need it. Okay, so there we go. This is an all-in-one system. As long as I've got the right music, I've got the ability to load them onto two sources, and I've got the mixer to be able to mix them, then we're good to go. I'm going to tell you all the settings that you need to put in place if you've got this type of setup in a future video. So this is an all-in-one system. So what would we move on to next? Probably the most commonly used DJ setup that is out there, and that is DJ controllers controlling DJ software using a laptop. So let's move on to that one. So here we have the Pioneer DJ DDJ 1000. Now, it doesn't really matter what controller or what software you're using. Again, I'm going to cover all of the settings in the coming videos. The point here is that most modern DJ controllers have got all the elements that you need to be able to learn to scratch. And of course, there's a new thing in the picture here, isn't there? Which is the laptop running software. And in this instance, I've got Rekordbox DJ here. So just to recap the obvious, I've got two sources of music, two ways of controlling them, which I can manipulate. And I've got my faders. And I've got my crossfader in the middle that means that I can cut between them. And of course, I can change the tempo if I want. So again, DJ controllers have got everything that you need. And this is one of the more expensive ones, but of course there are tiny DJ controllers that can do everything you need. And of course, it's not in the modern world all about a laptop either, because Pioneer DJ's DDJ 200 controller actually works using a smartphone. And can you learn to scratch and to scratch competently on that? Well, I don't have one here, but I'm going to let friend of Digital DJ Tips, Pri Yon Joni, show you that actually you can scratch just as good as Jazzy Jeff on a Pioneer DJ DDJ 200. Let's have a quick look at him doing that now. So there you go. From a budget point of view, it doesn't matter whether you've got a $150 controller like that Pri was using there, or you've got the top of the range DJ controller, you're going to be able to learn to scratch on whatever gear that you have got. But if money is no object and you're one of those guys or gals that like only wants the very best and you've got a big pro club setup, then does that have the elements you need? Well, I suppose you know the answer by now, but just for the sake of looking at a bit more gear, let's have a look at a pro club setup and take a look. So here we are then, lovely to look at, isn't it? The Pioneer DJ full club setup, the DJM 900 Nexus 2 mixer and two CDJ 2000 Nexus players. Again, all sorts of features going on here, and you can actually use this as a standalone system just by putting a USB into one of the players and connecting them all up and being able to take the music off your USB or an SD card or CDs if you have them. And also you can connect this system up to Traktor, to Serato, to Rekordbox to control those software-based DJ programs as well. So it really is the fully featured stuff. But this is silly, crazy money. And especially if you're learning to scratch, all you really need, as we know, are the two sources of music, the ability to control them, your two faders and your crossfader on the mixer. So whatever gear you have, as long as it's got those elements, you're going to be able to learn to scratch. Even if you're actually using vinyl, if you've still got old vinyl records and you want to learn to scratch in that way in this course, you can follow along with all the lessons in that way. And it goes without saying, of course, that if you've managed to get your hands on a pro scratch setup like 2 Rain 12 players and the Pioneer DJM S9 mixer, or the Rain 72 mixer, or any of the other Rain scratch mixers, then of course you're going to be good to go to learn to scratch, because that's what this stuff is built for. And of course the Rain gear has got these spinning jog wheels. You're going to see more of these in the course, but goes without saying, of course, that this is going to be good for you. Now, there are a couple of pieces of gear that if you've got, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to follow this training or learn to scratch. Those would be the Tractor Control S5 and the Tractor Control S8, because they do not have jog wheels. They don't have the ability to grab hold and manipulate your music. They've got these touch strips, which are cool. You can kind of make scratchy noises with them, but you're not going to be able to learn to scratch on that gear. And if you've got the Novation Twitch, which is a much older piece of gear, then you're also going to struggle. But if your gear is reasonably modern and your laptop is reasonably modern and well spec'd, and we'll learn all about that in the software settings, you're going to be good to go no matter what gear you've got. And you know, I just want to impress upon you that, like, you don't need to buy anything else. If you've got any of the setups that we've talked about today, you don't need to buy anything else to get started learning this. Do not buy into the idea that you can't learn to scratch because your gear isn't good enough. It is, and I'm going to help you to make sure that you can learn to scratch on your gear. All right, let's move on to the next lesson.